The following conversation is with Perla Zaltzman, who was born and raised in Paris, France. Perla has been co-director of Chabad of Niagara Falls since 2005, where her and her husband Zalman have been serving that community. Currently pursuing a PhD at Brock University with a research focus on academic competition. Perla is a wife, a devoted mother, a community leader, 6 children, 5 in her arms and 1 in heaven. I have to give a trigger warning for this episode. We cover topics about loss, grief, the death of a child. Please listen with that knowing. You will see in this episode, this is Perla's first time on camera in this capacity and really doing a podcast of any kind. We purposely left in some of the moments of pause, moments of emotion where she was unsure what she wanted to say on purpose to keep the authenticity and integrity of this episode. You will hear some Hebrew words and references to Chabad, Chabad house, Shliach, and Shlucha. The Chabad movement has a heavy emphasis on focus on spreading the knowledge, the teachings, and the beauty and love of Judaism and Torah all around the world. Where some sects and some religions are more insular focused, Chabad has a strong focus on outreach and setting up community centers all over the world. The Chabad Rebbe, who has now passed, set up this system in which he would send out couples to create, foster, nurture, and grow Jewish communities in all parts of the world. A shliach is the male figure. A shlucha is the female figure. A Chabad house is quite virtually the community center in which they establish in the community that they were sent to go grow. I hope you enjoy this episode. Perla, tell me a little bit about your early formative years, like your childhood, your family life. What were your parents like? A little bit about your childhood to give us some context to who you are today.
Okay, so I was born in Paris to non-French parents. So my mother is Israeli. My father grew up in Morocco when his parents were Chabad Shluchim there.
Okay.
For reference, Shluchim are people sent by the Rebbe to various locations around the world to help communities and, be a beacon of Judaism wherever they are.
Okay.
So my grandparents were one of the first ones sent by the Rebbe on their way out of Russia after all this persecution. They wanted to go to Israel, join their family. But the Rebbe told them they have a different mission and sent them to Morocco. So they were Russians living in Morocco. I mean, this is important for context because I am Moroccan.
Important context. So you're Moroccan.
I am Moroccan. Yes, I have a lot of Moroccan influence in my life, in my food, in my speaking,
in attitude,
in my lingo. Like I use Arabic words. I mean, that's also because I grew up in Paris, around a lot of Tunisians, Moroccans, Algerians who brought that also to school.
Yeah.
So my father's Moroccan, my mother's Israeli, and I'm French. Like I'm the first one in my family who got a French citizenship because it's very much part of who I am, my culture.
Yeah.
So
spicy, those are a lot of spicy personality, right?
Yeah, cultures. And Ashkenaz and all of that. Like there's the whole Russian, and Lubavitch thing that's also in there. So there are multiple cultural identities that I carry.
Yeah.
And now in Canada.
Right. And now are you Canadian now?
No.
Okay. And what about large family? How many siblings?
I have 3 brothers, 3 sisters. We were first 4 girls, then 3 boys. I'm the second oldest.
Okay.
I have an older sister.
And do you take a bit of a leadership role within your family?
Absolutely.
Why does that not surprise me?
Yeah.
When you were growing up, was it always clear that your path was going to be like a Chabad emissary of the Rebbe, or what did you think you wanted to be when you were growing up? What did you want to be?
So in my essays when I was in grade 9 and, through middle school, high school, whenever I was writing essays and about my career, I saw myself more as a psychologist.
Okay.
I was reading a lot of psychology magazines. I was picking them up since I'm 12, 13, from the tobacco stores.
Yeah.
And I was very intrigued.
Was anyone else in your family like, where did the love of psychology come from? Was there an influence in your family? Was somebody already into it and you adopted that? Or were you sort of a black sheep with that? And then where do you think that came from?
Yeah, I was more of the black sheep in that. I mean, like, not really seen as, like, bad in that way, but it was different. My mother did encourage it, though, and my grandmother, the one from Morocco, I hear, like, posthumously that she was very into psychology. My aunt is a social worker, which I only found out recently.
Oh, wow. On which side?
On my father's side. My father
Okay.
has one sister who didn't follow the same, like, intense path like everybody. She was on her own path,
Okay.
which she actually met with the Rebbe before going to college.
Like to ask for like a bracha about it? Or, okay.
Yeah, even though her father was quite opposed to it, her mother said, write to the Rebbe. She wrote a 3-page letter to the Rebbe saying that she's wondering if she should go to Hebrew college or Stern College, Hebrew University in Jerusalem or Stern College. And she had a full yechidus, like...
Wow, like a one-on-one meeting.
With the Rebbe, and the Rebbe told her to go to Stern College and to be a light there. So there is already that kind of nuance. I only found out about it, like, later in my life, more recently. Yeah. But
so maybe you were into psychology.
Yes.
You were kind of a black sheep. That wasn't very common as far as, like, girls your age in a traditional, like, Chabad background.
Right.
So the thought was maybe you might grow up to be a psychologist.
Yes. But I went to a school it was a Chabad school, but it's called Sinai. And it's more of a community school, though. Most of the girls in my class were not
right
as observant or definitely Chabad. So it was a school, like, academically catered for everyone. And whenever we chose our path for the baccalaureate, there was guidance counseling to see, okay, what do you want to do academically later in life?
Right.
What are your strengths? And my strength always pointed out in that direction, in the social sciences.
Yeah.
So
the writing was on the wall in some regards.
Yeah, but then I didn't do that.
Well,
I didn't follow. No, I didn't follow that right away.
Right. Well, I know.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, we're going to get...
Sorry.
You're giving... No, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, I think people are going to find out in this conversation. When one of the... So, just to give a little context to the listeners, we met through Instagram and ended up, by some sheer dumb luck, I'll put dumb in air quotes, we ended up having a phone conversation.
Divine Providence.
Divine Providence. We ended up having a phone conversation that came through a giveaway. And some things that we talked about on that call, some of the things that really stuck out to me was you had talked about your early years as a community leader running this Chabad house / Jewish community center in Niagara. And as an early young shlicha, you struggled a lot with the pressures, the needs of that role and everything it brought, and your journey through figuring out how to be more symbiotic in that role so that it wasn't necessarily becoming larger than you, but that you were like, and I'm going to leave that for your words, but talk to me a little bit about that journey and what that looked like for you, starting from what it felt like as a young shlicha.
Yes. So I came out, I wanted to go on shlichus to begin with. After my first year, like the year before I got married, I was on shlichus in Dijon in France, and I helped the shluchim there, and I found so much passion and, reconnecting people or helping people connect to their Judaism, just the life and light that came out of their faces and their connection. It was very moving to me, and I'm like, wow, I would love to do that.
Yeah.
So when I met Zalman, it was one of the things I really said, okay, this is my passion. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I forgot about, I put aside...
Zalman being your husband.
Yeah, Zalman being my husband. I put aside that dreams, like those... like the vocational aspirations in psychology was like, this is a lot more meaningful for me, and I'll do that. I also was out of seminary, where that was like so promoted, as the right thing to do.
And how old were you during this time?
I was 18 when I was in Dijon.
Okay.
I turned 19 in my year in Dijon. So when I got married, I was 19, and a year later, when I was 20, is when I landed in Niagara. Zalman was 22. I was 20. We had a 6-week-old baby, Mendel.
Oh my goodness.
And we moved from Paris in September of 2005, right then, to Niagara. And with a lot of passion and dreams of making this tourist location one that is vibrant and serving the Jewish needs of the tourists. And then we realized there is also a community there and there is a campus there. And it was, you know, like so much drive and passion. And we put a lot, I mean, especially, I mean, I can talk for myself, like there was a lot of needing to feel worthy as a shlucha and doing all the things that make you look like a good shlucha.
Right.
Maybe it was to feel like a good shlucha, to look like, you know, it's all like confused in my head right now, like what it was. I think it was
19, 20. I
yeah.
mean, even under the best of circumstances, 20-year-olds have a hard time identifying who they are in the world.
Yes.
And then you're given this massive responsibility of like growing and leading a community, of which many are significantly older than you.
Older, yes.
So
older and resistant, you know, you're so religious and we're like, you know, what's your goal? Like a lot of fear of you know, people like to just have like things the way they are. And here, there was resistance also in the community, and there was immaturity in terms of, you know, handling relationships.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of things went great and we made like great connections, but, you know, with the young age, it came also with a lot of challenges. But I like was so inspired with, you know, my grandparents and my parents and the Kinus HaShluchim, like the conferences, and they all talked about, you know, the sense of Mesiras Nefesh, of self-sacrifice, and how difficult it is. And I grew up with those stories of how difficult things were in Russia and how they broke through the ice to go to mikvah. And so what was that? You know, that it's difficult for me to organize, like, you know, a big party with like a baby in my stomach and a toddler in my hip and no money. Like, there were,
so you're coming at it with like, look at what my ancestors did. Look at what the other people are doing. There are Chabad emissaries in much more remote locations with less access to kosher things, and but you are like feeling like,
and they're doing all of this, and then there wasn't Facebook, but there was you know, other things where you can see what other people are doing and keep comparing and like, this is great. Am I enough? Like, I'm not doing that. So like, you add and add. So 2-3 years down the road, I was with you know, 2 little babies, 22-year-olds, 23, whatever, you know, like in my early 20s, hustling, never enough. Getting babysitters for them left, right, and center all the time. And like, there's a lot of pain just thinking of how much like I missed. I mean, on one hand, I see pictures and I say, yes, I did live through their young age, but I also spent so much time, even when they would come just from preschool in the afternoon, Monday, twice a week, I would teach teenagers. I wasn't there and I was so stressed that I didn't have the self-efficacy that I have now. So then I was so, you know, with low executive functioning, trying no help, like barely money to pay, you know, for a cleaning help or housekeeping help. So it was a lot until,
And until what? What do you think, like, then what happened? Like, that made you realize, A, this is unsustainable, and B, it could be different?
Yeah, it took a long time. Like, this realization didn't happen overnight. I crashed many times in this process. It took a huge toll on my mental health. And I don't know if this is specifically on shlichus. I think that everyone, I mean, Erickson speaks, you know, a psychologist speaks of like the different stages in life. In your 20s, there is this a stage of like productivity and getting into the workforce and building your career and your entity.
Right.
And there's this hustling to get there.
Right.
Like this. Yeah. And so much self-worth in our society is attached to what you do, not who you are.
What you produce,
productivity. And so there was, you know, I think it's very typical of people like at that stage in life, just hustling for self-worth, hustling for productivity, for a place in this world, that is worthy.
Yeah, exactly. That's why, and I'm going to actually give some context before this podcast airs to let people know what all the Hebrew words so they understand. But the truth of the matter is it doesn't matter, because you could replace Chabad Shlucha, community center / Chabad house with any entrepreneurship or anything you're trying to build in the world, produce in the world, the career that you choose. Where you're really measuring who you are and your self-worth against what you're producing.
Right.
So I could just imagine young mother, little babies, so many obligations, watching all these other Chabad emissaries all over the world seemingly do it effortlessly, right? Because it's not the same culture we have now today. I think all cultures, but certainly I think Chabad has come a long way with a little bit more of the transparency of, I think, some of the struggles. It's just been more open, right?
A lot more, yeah.
But you didn't have that back then.
No, I thought I was the only one struggling. And then I think it was, actually 10 years into it, that's, when...
It's absolutely okay if you cry. I'm probably gonna also, and I probably should have got tissues, but should I go get tissues right now? No.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That when
totally okay. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. When I realized. It was 10 years in, because it was in 2015 when my world collapsed.
I'm going to get tissues. Look.
I didn't expect this to...
There's no wrong anything. There's no bad anything.
Okay, and there's lots of editing can be done.
Yeah, everything can be edited. But tears shouldn't be edited.
Right. Yeah.
So 2015.
Yeah, 2015. Okay, and then I also, before then, I got a job in my kids' school.
Okay.
Also, that made it easier for, that made it easier for commuting at first, and also bringing another child from my community into the Jewish school. And I became, on top of being a shlucha, I was a teacher at a school and really invested myself so much as a teacher and in the school community around the clock, getting all the jobs that needed to be done, and recruitment and development, and aside from teaching. So I was extremely busy. And, when you feel like you can do something, you're like, oh, this feeling of being irreplaceable. If I'm not going to do it, what's going to happen? And there's so much, education is so important. So I was at the time also so invested in the school my kids go to, the Hamilton Hebrew Academy, a school which I adore.
Yeah.
And I gave a lot of my sweat and blood and life for.
But I think that's beautiful.
At this time of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was all beautiful, but when tragedy hit, I realized that really the main, when I lost my daughter to a drowning accident.
It's okay. Take as much time as you need.
Yeah, then I realized that really my primary role in this world is to be a mother. I'll say that again. And so then I realized that my primary role in this world was to be a mother, and that I missed, a significant time of my daughter's life that was so short. And if I knew how short it would be, I would have spent every waking hour taking care of her.
I think it's not uncommon for mothers to feel that they missed. You had unspeakable tragedy happened to you, which really shone a light on it. But I think so many mothers can really resonate with, I missed a lot of the important stuff. I wasn't present.
Right.
And like, I could speak personally, I missed a lot of because my son left me quite early. I can't even say I was building a Chabad center, a community center. I can't even say. I was giving my blood, sweat, and tears to a school. I was just absent. So I hope you do seek some comfort in that you are building something greater than you, building a legacy. Just because I think every mother can relate to this.
Right.
This feeling of, it took something great for me to realize that I was giving a lot of my purpose to the other things rather than my family.
Yeah.
So you had to sort of confront what you were giving your time and energy to.
Yeah. And then I was like, it created such a transformative shift in my intention, in my life, in just realizing what I lived for, what I wanted to live for. And in retrospect, of course, I did spend a lot of time with her, and there's some of my French culture sense of vacation and time with kids that I did incorporate in my life, which was not in my husband's vocabulary at all. Vacation, like he says, he's never gonna win vacation with his family.
Yeah.
So I brought that in. At first, it was foreign to him, but he did embrace it. So we did, those are the times that I look back and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad, we went to Florida annually. We, did things, in nature. And so we did a lot of that.
And you made that happen.
Yeah. So we did that even, with Musia, it's not, but there is still a sense of the balance was off and I needed to, get the balance straight in my life. So
talk me through a little bit of what that language looks like when you're a chronic overachiever, when you are a woman who's completely drowning in your roles, or not even drowning, but completely overwhelmed by your responsibilities, and you're trying to be somebody who is able to have agency like you speak about. What's some of the language that you gave to yourself, the conversations you had to yourself to help you find that balance so that you could get back on what you want, to make your life work for you?
Right. So first of all, it was clear, Musia's passing made it clear that life is short and that even, God willing, the rest of my children live forever and ever. Childhood is short. They're not at home, forever. So just having a look at this preciousness of those years and that life, just guides decisions differently.
Yeah.
And so, for example, we had a wedding 4 months after Musia passed away, and I was actually in LA the last time I was here before now.
The last time you were in LA before now?
Before now was 4 months after. Yeah, so there's a lot of replaying here, I was very, very, I can see the drastic difference, though, that happened over the years because I was so broken then. I've been reflecting a lot about it the past couple of days.
Yeah.
It's of course we're taking the kids. We're going. There was zero part of me that wanted to go anywhere or that even found any joy or enjoyment in life. And I'm like, the kids, they're so young. When are we going to have these experiences? It's not like we have our whole life. So that sort of guided in terms of making decisions of life is here right now and the kids are young and we're going to create amazing experiences. And, find the money and find the resources. Those come back, but time doesn't come back.
That's a good point.
And another big sense of balance that I had to face, over time, especially after I was dealing not just with the years of overachieving and hustling and overworking, but also with grief. I also realized that in order for me to be able to continue contributing to my family and to my community, I needed to take care of myself.
Yep.
And
the old oxygen mask
yes
analogy,
yes.
Which we know so well.
Yeah. And at the end, I show up as my, best version of a mother, best version of a shlucha, of a wife, of a friend, of a daughter, sister, when I really take care of myself. And that meant doing less and not putting too much on my plate, and
Yeah.
having my plate with a lot of like room, and it's not about doing. And at the time I was reading Brene Brown's books, which really changed, like really helped me, with the language
Yeah.
of, looking at society as, one of the things she says is, in society, productivity or busyness is a status. I don't know. Okay, like we'll have to
get the quote.
Yeah.
We'll find it.
Yeah. Okay, but like something like
I heard a quote
status symbol.
Oh, wait.
Like busyness as a status symbol.
Yeah, busyness as a status symbol.
Yes, like if you're busy,
Yeah.
like you're something.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're worthy. So I used to say, oh, I'm so busy. And I'm like, no, most of the time I'm not busy now.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean,
same.
Yeah.
I still have a really hard time.
Yeah.
When I'm not that busy.
Because we're not trained for that.
I know.
We're not
trained for, not conditioned.
And our society is not. And so we have to,
That's why we're doing the work.
Yes.
So, all right. That's really good. I love that. I'm actually going to use those two for myself. One of the other things that we had like really bonded over, we had talked about, and this is especially important for you because you're in a PhD program specializing.
I'm a PhD.
Oh, you are a PhD.
And so it's a PhD. Okay, I know what it is. It's a program over 6 years.
Right.
2 years MA, 3 years. I mean, I'm doing it in 3 years PhD, and I mean, I'm now starting to collect data for my PhD study, but I haven't defended yet my MA thesis.
Got it.
Yeah. But
okay.
It's
on your way, or in on that journey.
Yeah.
And you have a very specific, like your, I don't know if I think your thesis was in this, or is going to be about the competition in schools. Is that, do I understand that correctly? So, okay. I'm currently struggling with this whole concept of the way that the school system works, how much the workload on children, the competitiveness in children. I want you to shed some of your expertise on this and and maybe you could tell us a little bit about what your thesis is, like the broader subject matter, and then like maybe what you're seeing as it pertains to like what us mothers could be experiencing with our kids right now in school.
Right.
And the unprecedented pressure.
Right. Yeah, so one thing to remember is the framework of schools were built during the Industrial Revolution, and they were built to foster students who will become citizens that can be good workers and good producers.
Right.
And with
worker
that,
bees.
Yes.
Yeah.
So with that framework, and it's also like the school was built as a system that weeds, the workers who are not good, and just gives the best productive workers to the market.
Right. So the school system in a way was designed to weed out the non ideal workers.
Yes.
Worker bees.
Yeah, and to bring the best ones
forward.
Yes, to the workforce.
Got it.
Okay, so everything is not necessarily, if you look at a school through a framework of what's its purposes.
Yeah.
From that sense, it's not necessarily to the best interest of our children and to raise like every child. Now, I think that a lot of schools have adopted like better ways and are about children's education. And I think that most teachers who go into the job of teaching children go from a very
pure,
loving, pure, wanting to like raise children, but they're given pressures from the system.
Right.
From the system, some schools are businesses who need to, be the best. There's competition between schools, and how much do we produce students who, go to Ivy League universities. So this is like the school's perspective. And as parents, we're looking at, what's best for my child.
Right.
And not necessarily the competitive aspects of education is best for our children. For some children, it's great and it motivates. And in general, like competition is used as a motivating strategy.
Right.
But
like appeal to our sense of wanting to like be the best, be the greatest, be number one.
But it has also a lot of intrapersonal, emotional, psychological, social costs that come with it. And if there are ways we can find to motivate children without those costs, I think it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to look at, whenever our kids are facing a competition or pressure, to look at who's benefiting from this.
Right. Who benefits from the pressure and the competition?
Yes. Who's benefiting and what are the costs involved and what is the cost-benefit analysis that's working for this child?
Yeah. Here's the two things that I always vacillate between. It's very clear that my daughter is under a lot of pressure at school. Maybe more so, she switched from public school to private school, but I actually believe that it's really across the board now. I think children are under a lot of pressure academically. There's a part of me that feels like this is the world we live in. She should buck up now, like meaning the schools shouldn't necessarily pander to not pander, but this is the world we live in. Let's prepare the children for a fast-paced, competitive, cutthroat world. Right? That's one of my trains of thought. Am I doing her a favor by taking away those elements and pretending that that doesn't exist? Push pin in that. Combated with times have changed, our brains have changed, the way we learn has changed, and most importantly, coming back to what you're saying about how schools were formed and what they were trying to produce, we don't need the worker be in the same capacity. The jobs have changed. The demands on humans.
Creativity.
Yeah.
So
I'm always between those two things. How do you reconcile that? What's the right thing?
So I feel that that's a great question. And that's something that I get asked a lot.
Yeah.
Even when I present my thesis, in different places, that always comes back. So how do you prepare children for the real world that is very competitive? And I don't have, I'm not saying anything with certainty. I'm still in my quest for answers. Those are more questions than I have and that I want to research and do objective research on.
Yeah.
Also looking at the Torah perspective on things. But what my intuition is telling me is that, and there is scientific support, empirical support to that as well, that children, in order to face the world, they need to have a healthy self-esteem.
Yep.
Not based on external rewards of where they ranked in their class, because it's literally, sometimes the competition is a ranking.
Right.
And that doesn't, this competition, you can only compete when you compare on the same
apples
things.
Apples to
apples. So what you're telling them is we are, we're going to find something standardized and compare you to others and see how you're ranking. How does this way of thinking, this model, help children go through life and then take years of undoing the need for comparison to know where they're ranking in their field?
That is really profound.
To go, that's exactly what you're telling, right. Know how you do if you compare yourself to others and see how,
So the only way you know your self-worth is in comparison to others.
Yes.
Which is quite literally the exact opposite of what self-worth is.
Exactly. You don't get self-worth from that. And if you continue pursuing that in life, you might be, hyper competitive and get, climb the economic ladders, the corporate ladders, but look at people around you who are up high there, who fought through where is their well-being? How is their well-being? Should be a measure of success, and not necessarily, how much they're making or where they're ranked. And if you foster, on the other hand, their individuality and their creativity and their uniqueness, just have, how you don't look about how others do things. Yes, you can look for inspiration. You can look for, social comparison is something that's never going to go away.
Right, of course.
Right? But when that becomes a central factor, I think it's very destructive.
Yeah.
And at the end, a child who has healthy self-esteem, and that's from an attachment-based perspective,
right,
where, he or she has minimal traumatic events in their lives, there's a lot more chances that they'll fare well no matter the failures. Like
Right.
failures are unpredictable and control. Like a lot of them are, they come our way. We have setbacks, we have unfortunately tragedies, we have things but your resilience comes from a sense of like self-efficacy, self-worth.
Yeah.
So this is what we need to give the children.
Do you think in our lifetime, mine and yours, we will see meaningful change in that department in the schools? Like, are you hopeful that will happen?
Well, it depends on the systemic school system, like from the systemic level, and also the parents buy in. The more parents buy in and they push the children, the more the school will, reproduce that. But if there is some resistance and some change in the way parents educate their children and interact with the school systems, then there might be change sooner.
That's a great point. So the change literally starts with us.
Yeah.
And then I will tell you it's hard.
It is.
Because going up against school systems is hard. I'm facing it right now.
Right.
You feel like a little person looking up at like a giant army, because it's like what it is. You're going up against an entire faculty in some ways.
But don't underestimate your agency and the power of one person resisting.
Yeah.
That's how changes usually happened in society. Do you want me to say about my thesis quickly?
Yeah.
Okay. So my thesis specifically looks at the distinction between two kinds of competition: task-oriented competition and other reference competition.
Task and other reference?
Yes.
Okay, meaning?
Meaning that, not all competitions are the same.
Right.
Some are about mastery and being able to achieve something that everybody else can achieve. And there is anyways some competition in there because there is social comparison. We'll look how other people are doing.
Yeah.
But that's not a structure of the competition.
Right.
And then there is one that is structurally built as another reference competition where there are scarce resources, only, let's say, 3 top spots.
Right.
And in order to get there, winning means
stepping on other people.
Yes.
Yeah.
At the expense of others.
Right.
And those often are about status, dominance, honor.
Right.
And I think it's important for parents, for teachers, whenever they engage in competition, because some of them are inevitable, to at least think about the intention and talk about it with their children or the
That's
teachers.
a really good point.
It's like, okay, this is, let's look at it. Sometimes looking at some things and naming it, helps shape the intention. Yeah. And the questions also help shape the intention. So even if we can't get away, it would be great if there is systemic change, but even in our small ways, just looking, asking what kind of competition is it? Is this about status? Why am I pushing my child? What do I want? What's this obsession with being the best?
Yeah. God, I'm like listening and I'm just thinking about how prevalent it is in almost every single thing our children do in a lot of ways.
Yes, and all the competition, in gymnastics and there is enough athletic competitions and other things. Some of them are intergroup and they all at least have some social bonding.
Teamwork, right?
Teamwork and cooperation. So they have some benefits, but some of them where it's literally in your class wanting to be the best and outdo your peers.
Yeah.
How do you think that affects their anxiety, their humiliation?
Yeah, and even friendship.
Yes, and then friendships.
Yeah.
And so some of them are not affected, but for some of them it's affecting. It's, and also whenever there are those big competitions and kids are losing and it's traumatic. It's traumatic, it's humiliating.
Yeah.
Is there an acknowledgement or it's like, oh, man up? Or it's like, okay, let's at least talk about these feelings. This was hard.
Yeah.
This is painful. It was hard for me. I know that vicariously, like when I watch some of those competitions and I see the humiliation some of the kids go to on stage for saying the wrong thing, vicariously I'm feeling humiliated for them and just watching it.
I know.
The same way that when you watch the competitions, like even sports games, which is the industry of competition, is the biggest industry.
I know.
In the media and in the world, like
multi-million. Even when you go to the actual, like the most gruesome, like MMA, right? Like mixed, like quite literally, in some regards, we are still watching those age-old people fighting in the arena.
Yes. Okay. And even the Oscars, everything.
Right, it's true. Everything
is about competition.
Yeah.
Okay. Because this is what sells. People
right,
are
so
engaged.
Who benefits? It sells.
Yes, it sells. It's the media, and people like vicariously feel the like when you see people watching a game, the tensity, is like so felt.
Palpable.
And the same, yes, all palpable. And in the same way, like when you watch children, like I feel so much pain, and every time I watch it, I mean, I feel pride, I feel pain, I'm torn. I don't know. I don't have the answers. I know that this is not right, and if we feel this, we should, if we have agency, we need to find an agency to do something different for the children. And that's what I'm spending this few years trying to dissect it a little bit and see, like what's really going on.
Yeah.
And
that's such a great, I mean, it makes it feel like there's a way for us to have some control over it. Because sometimes it could feel like, how am I going to ever affect in a huge systemic problem, how can I affect change? But you're right, just one person having agency, giving a little pushback to the school, or even having conversation with your kid about what did that contest feel like,
right?
How to just
acknowowledge
that was really hard, or embarrassing, or
and also how does it feel like to outdo your peer, and how does it feel that they don't, like, I used to, when my kids did participate in so many of those competitions, and at the time I wasn't aware, like, I didn't have the words, I didn't have the language. I just felt so bad. The anxiety and out of place. And when they won, I felt a little bit bad for my friends whose kids are in the same class. And it's like, how am I supposed to be happy when they won against your child?
Yeah.
Especially in small communities. And I know it wasn't right, but I felt embarrassed from thinking something that's what I was thinking was different than what things should be.
Right.
And now I'm looking at the other way around.
Yeah.
Like, I think the way I think is actually has, something to it. Might not be 100% right.
I would agree with that.
Okay. And maybe the system is, messed up in that way, or like not doing it right. And a lot of the system is just reproducing, if we've done it for so long, and, we're all doing okay. Well, no, we're not doing okay. Look how much like depression and anxiety is out there. How much people are not feeling worthiness from the work they're doing because they didn't outdo like their neighbors.
Right. Like the arguments, like people well, it's working. Look, we're performing, we're creating amazing athletes. We're creating amazing academics. And you're saying at what cost?
At what cost? And
we're not happier people. We're not
No.
more well-adjusted people.
There is mental health crisis. Right. There's overdose crises. There is crises of every, sort. So no, like, and I'm not saying that it all boils down to the competition.
Right.
But there's little we can do on a one-on-one level. People have to do their work of breaking their generational traumas, of breaking their patterns. But so we can't really intervene on like individual levels, but sometimes, that's the work of, some people can, some people can't. But at least on a systemic level, let's not make things worse.
Yeah.
The kids, we're entrusted with kids in the educational system. Let's let them live with the most healthy self-sense and the least trauma possible. And I believe that competitions contribute to some trauma that we can avoid.
Yeah.
And there are other ways to motivate. There are other ways. Do I know exactly how or not? No, there are some ideas in cooperation, but it takes more time. It takes time, effort, and resources to think,
outside the box.
Yeah. So, but that's, the work that I believe needs to be done to thinking of other ways.
I really, really like that. I really like that. So you're a bit of a data expert. I mean, pretty much a big part of what you're doing right now is data analysis, taking apart data, poking holes or finding holes in statistics. Mm-hmm. So you're somebody who specializes in data. We could agree on that objectively. Mm-hmm. Nuance. Are you experiencing what I'm experiencing, which is that people are losing the art of nuance in many regards?
100%.
How do we, I guess not how, I don't want to put you in the position of having to give me these global, worldwide answers for like huge systemic problems. But I mean, what's a way that we can approach information, things we're experiencing, in a way that can bring a little bit of nuance, so that we could breathe a little bit of this new way of being into our school system, education, parenting life? Like, how do we bridge that gap between data and stats and nuance?
So I think that even when you look at data, like, it's giving you, from a statistical perspective, only some of similarities that are seen over 30% of people, for instance, like, nothing's like black and white.
Right.
Like, most variables don't have a correlation of 1. They have a correlation of 0.2, which in psychology is a good correlation, but there's, it's not so high. Like,
Right.
it speaks of the nuance and the variability between individuals.
Right.
Like, not everybody thinks the same way. Not everybody has the same personalities. Not everybody has the same histories. And I think that we need to give people room for, for being who they are, and understanding that there are multiple ways of seeing things, multiple perspectives, and having the humility. And that's something that I've grown into. It's taken work. I used to also think, black and white about topics.
Yeah.
And I think with age, you think, you realize, no, things are really not black and white. There is a lot of nuance.
It's not happening for everyone with age.
Okay.
I will say, you might be, you're just lucky. That's
Okay.
right. But yeah, sometimes it's just,
And if somebody's thinking, like, they have some truth to it, and really try to look at people through lenses of, they are worthy. They are worthy. They have something to contribute. We don't have all the answers. We don't. And I know even like organic competition, some people think very differently than me, and they really will want to hold on to the system. And there's value in that too.
yeah.
And that's the art of listening too.
Yeah.
Hearing where people are coming from and bring in, their perspective,
Right.
In our ways of being, and being open and reading. And yeah, it's like open-mindedness, humility, and curiosity, which is a lot about the questioning, oh, what is it?
Right.
Like we don't have, like, approaching people with curiosity is so, so important.
Yeah.
If somebody thinks differently than you, like, can you get curious without being defensive?
Yeah. I love that. That's something I'm actually working on too. Like when I'm going into an experience that's going to be hard, like sometimes, for people it's going home. Like going home is a trigger.
All right.
I actually had this just recently with the Seder, like the Passover Seder.
Uh-huh.
I knew it was going to be long. I knew I was going to be hungry. I haven't done like a super, super Orthodox Seder in a long time.
Uh-huh.
For those who don't know, the Passover Seder could be quite long, depending on who you're doing it with. And I was like a little anxious about that. Also for Lila, I didn't want her to get tired and have her have a bad experience. And I was like, look, I'm going to just approach this with curiosity. Like people have been doing like this for centuries, like being curious. Like my family finds a lot of joy and like it. And I just approached the whole thing with curiosity, and it really was a radical shift. I had a beautiful experience. So did Lila. And by the way, all my worries about Lila didn't happen. It was me.
Yeah.
She was not cranky or tired. I was sort of going to get cranky or tired. But like just the curiosity is such a huge component.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, I'm going to ask questions instead of making statements. That's such a good point. Okay. How can you be an Orthodox feminist?
Oh my gosh.
Can you be religious?
Yeah, because first of all, the Orthodox, like I don't consider myself Orthodox. I mean, like in terms of the labels, that's something that's more been imposed to us, like to separate people and label the Orthodox, conservative, reform, and we don't abide by that. The Rebbe never did.
Right. So can
observe.
You, can you be like come from a highly observant community? And I'm not even just talking about Jewish necessarily.
Right.
Can you come from a highly observant religion of any kind and be a feminist?
So my answer, like right away, is yes. But it comes with a lot of nuance and a lot of work and a lot of therapy. But it's so I minored in my undergrad in sociology.
Okay.
Specifically in sociology of gender, because I felt feminist for a long time. So studying it, more like from an academic perspective, attracted me.
Okay.
But once I was there, I did learn a lot, and I gained a lot of language, and I felt extremely empowered, but at the same time, so alienated, because it depends what kind of feminism. So if you talk about like the liberal woke feminism, it's not, a lot of it is in contradiction to the way Torah looks at women and, our roles. And I had to work. And I remember the first year of taking those courses in sociology were extremely difficult for me on a personal level. I wanted to cry, and
because you're straddling both worlds of like being in this highly academic environment with a very woke, liberal approach to feminism, starkly contrasted with what we were raised with and what you're like the Chabad and just a Jewish movement of what a woman's role is.
Yes.
More of a traditional role.
Yes, exactly. So for me, it was, and I did identify a lot with the liberal feminism.
Yeah.
And it was, but I also was so not ready to give up on my core values, which are so part of me, like the Jewish values. So how, do you integrate those two worlds? So it's taken me time, but I think that I have, and I feel like I'm adopting a lot I don't think they're in contradiction, in fact. I think that wokeism is, I mean, to say that men and women have zero biological differences, zero differences, and they're all socially constructed.
Right.
I don't believe that.
I don't either.
There are differences between men and women, and women need to be celebrated for who they are, not to be denied.
Right.
Who
or
they
just
are.
Be called birthers.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. But at the same time, I believed all along, when I was doing this integration work, that Judaism is feminist at its core. And whatever is patriarchal in Judaism, at the expense of women, in a way that disadvantages women, is socially constructed.
Yeah.
And it's, conveniencing, it's convenient, for some people.
Right.
It works for some. Some people love it, and good for you. If it works for you and doesn't inconvenience you, this arrangement of rules, then go for it, celebrate it, pass it on to your children. Good for you.
Right.
But if it doesn't work for you, and it is not prescribed by Torah, those are more traditions that, were carried on in homes, then, then you can change it. It is not Torah.
Right.
Having the woman get up during the Shabbos dinner to clear up the plates, her and her daughters, when the men are just sitting there schmoozing, because, that's not a...
Right. That's
not literal like Torah.
Right.
Torah
that's a home practice.
That's a home practice.
Right.
That's maybe, traditional, but it's not necessarily Torah. And it's important to dissect the roles, the women roles that are, intrinsically connected to Jewish values, and those which are traditional roles connected to patriarchy in the ways that societies were, doing.
Yeah.
So I've been able to dissect it a little bit. There are still issues that are Torah-based, which bother me a lot, and I wish, to see change in that. And, we
talked a little bit about the aguna.
The aguna, yeah.
Right. So there's a concept when somebody, how do we describe what the aguna crisis is?
The aguna is, it's based on a Jewish practice, a Jewish mitzvah, that in order to divorce, a man needs to give his wife a get.
Right. So
that's the way it works.
The man has to grant his wife, or soon to be ex-wife, a divorce.
A divorce.
And it starts and ends with the man.
Yes. So if he refuses to, even if they live separately and she wants to go on with her life, according to halacha, according to Jewish law, she cannot remarry. So she's kind of chained.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of power that men still have in that regards. And that, to me, is something that I'm sure that there is change that can be made within the confine of halacha. It just needs, maybe I'm wrong, and and I should say that in a podcast where this is going to stay forever, and maybe I'll be attacked for it. But
well, we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. But I have a question.
Right.
Really, everything was done. Can there be done more? This is my question, and I'll approach it with curiosity, humility, and also acceptance that sometimes the Torah is above, something that we can change. I don't know.
Right.
But aside from that, a lot of the ways, patriarchy is done in homes is not necessarily, if it's detrimental, to a woman who's out of breath and has so much to do, and she still needs to do all the household chores just because this is not Torah.
No. I would agree with that.
Yeah. So but on the other hand, like I think that's Torah feminism, like the one that like really celebrates the value of the Jewish woman as a mother, as a wife, like all these traditional ways could benefit us a lot.
Oh,
if
yeah.
we really lean into them with their true purpose. And I think that God is good, like, and the way that He's created like this differences in men and women and the different roles, like, could be this is true feminism.
Yeah.
But like, and the Rebbe to me is the biggest feminist.
Yeah.
You know, empowering women, but also it's all coming. The basis of everything is kindness and support and love, shalom, peace.
Yeah.
Like, you know, to have gender roles without kindness and peace, this is not Torah feminism. This is not Torah.
Right. That's really, really true. I think that's I love that, you know, because I grew up in a household more like the one that you're in now. My mother was an academic. My mother ran a beautiful Jewish home. And also in many ways my mom was, she was the breadwinner for many, many years. So like it was a very non-traditional Orthodox Jewish home, and highly educated. So I grew up with this idea that you could be Orthodox and feminist because I felt like my mother really was.
Right.
Not because she said feminist things, but because she was so accomplished, so successful outside of the home, but also really kept the values and traditions that she believed in the, you know, like the Jewish values and cultures, and without compromising either of her roles. And I'm sure there were times like you, she was crumbling under that pressure, but like that was just what I saw of a Jewish woman. And
right.
You know, and I feel it doesn't have to be contradictory.
No. And what you're saying also in terms of feminism, it doesn't need to be like empowered, like to, you know, you can be an academic and, you know, empowered in your mind, have a sharp mind, but still be feminine.
Yeah.
And modest and intuitive and peaceful. You know, like those are
so true.
Women, like feminine qualities that are
empowered.
Gifts.
Doesn't have to be loud.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like feminism doesn't need to be you know, embodying masculinity.
Yeah.
Embodying masculinity.
Right.
You know, it could be it should, I mean, sorry, feminine. It's not about embodying like masculinity in terms of power and aggression and conquering.
Yeah.
You know, it's really leaning into like feminine values, which both men and women have.
Yeah.
But which are stronger and more present in women, and leaning into that to build your home, your business, your life, your friendship, your social life with wisdom, feminine wisdom,
divine wisdom. All right. I have like just two other things I want to cover with you real quick. All right. I want to know about your thoughts currently on social media. Predominantly helpful, predominantly damaging, and for yourself personally, what guardrails do you put in place to make sure that it's not damaging and more productive for you, positive? Can you, if you have any best practices that you do for yourself or guardrails you give for yourself, maybe could you share them with listeners just in hopes that maybe some of us benefit? Because I'm not going to say any names, but one of us sitting in this room has some trouble with guardrails, social media. I could use some tips.
So I'm pretty new to social media compared to you and some others. I mean, I've been on Facebook for, you know, since it started in 2007. But Instagram thing is, you know, only 3 years, you know, old for me.
But you're on it.
I'm on it
and
now.
You're relatively active and pretty open and vulnerable. I'm going to share in the podcast notes where people can find you and hear more about you. But you're active and you're vocal.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
About sensitive topics, which is especially hard, such as feedback. Are there some things you do to kind of, you know?
So... yeah, I feel like I started being more, you know, open and active myself on it a year ago. It's been a gradual process to feel safe, to share. And I do it for myself. Like for me, it's almost like a sort of journaling lenses. Obviously I don't put everything in there, like,
Right. Of course.
you find, so, but it's a way of like capturing my life, documenting, my day, and frame it in a way that gives me a sense of satisfaction, a sense of clarity. Like sometimes I want to process something and it's through images. I've been taking pictures and videos my entire life. I had video cameras when nobody had one in grade 10, grade 11, like used to film. Like this has always been a way of me like capturing and living in the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, when people say put away your cameras and, just live in the moment, for me it's like, no, you're taking away me living in the moment.
I actually have never felt that. I never could articulate that till you just said that.
Yeah.
People like live in the moment, like part of my moment's capturing it.
Yes, it's capturing, it's the art. It's the art, looking at it through lenses that like a lens, a camera lens literally can capture it, and you see the beauty of it, and then, you look at it, you can stay with it. So the angles, because it's all about angles.
Yeah. Oh,
angles,
I'm all about my angles.
Okay, angles, lights, right? But this is like a way of looking at life, because we can look at life, through a down angle, through like, different perspectives. And it's about the beauty and the art of bringing a perspective that can look at life with a sense of gratitude.
Yeah.
Gratitude, beauty, art. And so it serves me in that way for myself, like to share in that way. And mostly like the connection that I feel from sharing me.
Yeah.
And the community that I have of friends and new friends who connect with me and are with me on this journey makes life so rich, so much more rich, and less lonely also because of where I live. I don't live in a big Jewish community,
right?
I have a few friends in my community which I love, but like we don't see, like it's not a village like where everybody's in the playground, like people live in their homes, and you don't want to bother people like in their homes, like you don't want to reach out like the way we, you don't just pick up the phone and make a call. And here it's
time.
Like it's a different time. So like when you post, and like it's reconnecting me with friends, from seminary, from family, new people, like all. So I feel like it did make my world bigger.
Yeah.
And I love that about Instagram. I love that I have met you.
I know. Ditto.
Yeah. And
so you've had like a pretty positive experience.
Yes.
Like all around. Yeah. That's good.
And then the following, like the consumer. So this is like, the producing lens of it. And also I don't feel pressure. I don't have, a big account. I'm not a content creator. I'm a digital creator. I don't have to do anything. Like It's just whenever it serves me. If it starts, to feel like dull or that I'm too busy, I don't have to do it. Like, it's not, it's, I can
you
take
put
space.
it down.
Yeah, put it down. I don't, so it's whenever it serves me. And sometimes like I go past when it serves me and I feel it, and I,
we always know.
Yes, we always know. And as a consumer, I've gone through, my journey of following different people, and I think that you see like people the way, they make you feel. If it's annoying or you feel like it's giving, like it's about noticing how your body feels, how your heart feels.
Yeah.
And also question, why does this make me feel this way? Do I need to push myself?
Curiosity.
Curiosity. But I'm at a point of my life where I need to fill my tank in order to live. And I've learned that like, I want to seek joy.
Yeah.
So people who spark joy, those are the accounts that I follow. And I love interior design.
Yeah.
I love authenticity. I love life's looking good.
Thank you.
Like, those are things, whenever like I just like, I love a good laugh.
Me too.
And I love like the art and beauty of spaces. I've always been in interior design. So, like, aside from psychology, newspapers, magazines, at age 15, I used to go in Paris in home decor stores. I once went to Cannes with my cousin. We were in 11th grade. I came to Cannes for the weekend. That's where she lives, Adela. And
her name is Adela?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. How did you just process that?
I know. And I remember I'm like, okay, what are we doing? Like, it wasn't the beach, wasn't that? I'm like, let's go to a home decor store.
Oh.
Okay, like that's
girl after my own heart.
Okay, so it was like that's people need to know like what nature like does it to me. So I'll follow accounts that like and in terms of timing, I'm struggling with that. Sometimes I spend more time on Instagram than I want to. But I, like everything, self-control, trying to set boundaries.
Yeah.
I don't sleep with the phone in my room.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I just heard that on a podcast. Someone else say the thing that changed my life was taking my phone out of my room.
Yeah. And I started reading a book, over a few months, some of the books that, from Becky, Dr. Becky, I don't know, Good Insight. That's the name of her book. And whenever I struggle with my kids, being very needy or they're fighting a lot, so I looked into her book about what to do, how to mediate that. She seems to have a lot of answers. And her go-to thing is PNP. Presence, no phone, maybe it is. I don't remember what the acronym is for, but that's what it is. It's if you want to spend time with your child, do 10 minutes a day where your phone is not even in the same room. Because when it's in the same room, remember, oh, Amazon, oh, this, and then respect, all the things.
Yes.
She's actually, your phone in a different room. I don't have the phone during bedtime with them. I don't have the phone whenever they want to spend time or the intentional time that I spend with them. I do need to take my phone when we go to places because I want to take pictures.
Yeah.
That's also a big part of it. Our pictures are in our phones.
Yeah.
But
I know.
In terms of at home, I really try that and it's made great changes.
Yeah. I tried sometimes too. I'm not always masterful at it, but bedtime, I really try to have the phone in another. I'm really trying to be better about that.
We're figuring it out, right?
Yeah, we're figuring it out. It's ever evolving.
But at least we have the intention. We know what the right thing is, and we know, and also we don't want to model for them to be like this with their phones because this is right.
100%.
Yeah. When they have
100%.
phones, yeah.
So, my last and final question, and probably the most important. So, for those who don't know, you published a book about your daughter's passing and how people can, especially for children, giving them some sort of language for holding on to loved ones after they've passed in a meaningful way.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about in the end of the book why it was so important for you to do that and what the purpose was. That to me was so powerful when I read that. Our communities, many communities have a hard time talking about hard things, grief. And you were in your true feminist, true Moroccan, true, you just were adamant that you wanted to create change in this space with making sure that this was something that was talked about. Can you talk a little bit about that and what really pushed you to do that and what kind of what you were seeing in the space?
Right. So first of all, my friend Rebecca Shapiro is the one who came up with this idea of doing this book. She illustrated it, she wrote it, she published it.
The illustrations were amazing.
Right. She's such a talented artist. And she did it, I don't know if you ever heard of Project Proactive.
No.
Okay. It has a Instagram account. And
okay.
So they're, so she's, I think, the director of, or co-director of that organization. And she was by my side watching me from the day that we landed in the hospital with Lucia. And, her passing and then me wanting to memorialize her and how much resistance I had from my surrounding, the community. There was a lot of support and I can't be grateful enough, which is interesting because there's so much, I feel in the community, there's so much love and so much support, for the pain and the suffering and the Shiva and past. But then the time after, people don't really know, they want you to move on.
Right.
It's too hard for them to stay in the pain, to look at pain in the eye and the suffering. They can't handle it. A lot of people can't handle it. They don't know what to do. It's all coming from, I believe, a very, very good place.
Yeah.
But it was uncharted territory for us. And one thing I knew deep in my heart, and I actually wrote it on my Facebook post the day that she passed away, to announce, the funeral. And I said that we will, thank you, that, I thanked Hashem for the 6 years, and 4 months and 6 days that I had her. And I said it will continue. I will continue to parent you until I don't know if I should tell my last breath or whatever. This is it's just a different role. You're not here anymore. But the idea of it being over, me being her mother, and parenting her. Like, I could not handle it. And I had to find a way to continue parenting her. And I did. Like, there are so many, like, it's not over. Like, not because they're not in this world. Like, and it's also not something that I have chosen. Like, it's not a life I have chosen, like, to be a grieving mother. And for those who were judging the way I was grieving or the way I was mothering, like, my dead child, I wish you are never, ever in this position, because it's a lot of pain that is very, very, very hard to carry. Grief is hard. Shame is hard. Guilt is hard. It's like all of it. Like, it's just anger. Like, it comes, like, grief is not a pleasant feeling. Like, it comes with, you don't want to live in your body when you're feeling that. It's so, so painful. So I found a way. It was memorizing her. Like, there are, and the Torah, and it's in support, like, with the Torah. And I'm so glad I connected with Dr. Blumenthal from OHEL.
Yeah.
Who actually had the Torah references about Yaakov that refused to let himself comforted. And the Rashi was talking there, but you had 11 other children. And he's like, no, I don't, like, it doesn't matter. Like, I will not, like, I cannot be comforted. This is so painful. And then there's Yeshayahu and, like, all different, Nevi'im, like, that talk about, like, the way we memorialize, Yad Vashem, like, a name and a place, and like memorialization
right,
is part.
Play,
yes, is part of our traditions. The Rebbe wrote to people who had lost children and who asked, how should we celebrate a birthday? He said, you should do farbrengen and give tzedakah with the same, like, give charity with the same numerical value of the child's name, and have a party, like a farbrengen for it. So there was support. Like, I wasn't crazy doing something superstitious. That there's support in our, culture and tradition in doing that. But again, society, the society was not comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Right?
People really would really be more comfortable if people just moved on. If they didn't have to be confronted with how difficult it was to move on, I should say.
Exactly.
Maybe not that they want you to move on. Of course they know. But people would feel more comfortable if they could visually see someone grieving move on.
Yes, move on and just feel better. They want to take the pain away.
Yeah.
And the thing is that you cannot take the pain away. This is part of the healing journey, like going through grief and finding a way to incorporate, the grieving and the child who's not here in your life. And part of it was also people were trying to protect their children. Right. So a lot of her life, Mus's life, was about her friends.
Yeah.
She was a social butterfly, loved her friends. In one of her Mother's Day thing, just 2 months before, she had to write, for Mother's Day, that I love my mother more than the next thing that she loves, most, my friends.
Yeah.
And she had pictures of her friends. They were always part of her life. So when she passed away, it was like my connection was so strong to her friends. I wanted to keep them, like, together. And they did. Like, I taught her class the following year, which people really tried to discourage me from, but I wanted this connection with them. They, felt also comfort in seeing me and being reminded of Musia, but it was hard for parents, for the school to, let that happen in a way that they were afraid that it's going to damage the children.
Right.
And Dr. Blumenthal, who's very supportive, told me, and I was worried also about my own children, by the way.
Right.
Like, how do I, like, I mean, it's not just that they lost their sister, what's going to be like, I feel like they're losing their chance at life because they're going to be so affected by this trauma and maybe damaged by this trauma. So he said about them and all the other children will be affected, but not necessarily damaged.
Right.
And affected doesn't mean bad. I mean, They are more empathetic, they're more resilient. It depends how you approach it.
Right.
And he said these kids they're feeling grief, and adults need to acknowledge this grief and connect them. I'm like, when they are connected to Musia, like, they are healing too.
Yeah.
But if you're going to take it away and not talk about it, they're just going to feel alone. Like, what's going to change is whether they feel supported or alone in their grief.
Yeah.
And when you talk about things or you memorialize a child, for children, like, it helps them connect to this new reality, which we haven't chosen, which, literally God put, in our lives when we did not want that.
Right.
And bring them to her grave, like, in a way that, like, there's a physical place where she is. And for me, it was I think it's good for them. And for me, for Musia, it's like, Musia, you still have your friends here.
Yeah.
Like, they're still coming. And every time I go to the cemetery with her friends at her yard site and they come, I'm moved because I'm like, look, so many years later, your friends haven't forgotten you.
Yeah.
And they come to her birthday every year. I make a birthday for her class and they come.
Yeah.
And at first there was resistance to it.
Right. I can imagine.
Yeah. But it took work and agency. And Rebecca, my friend, who, really helped me through it and like putting that book out there, which I think once it got so much support from mental health professionals, if you look at behind of the book, Dr. Wonthal, like all, and he gave a forward, but there is, a series of well-known and respected trauma specialists who said this, like, yes, this is the way, this is healthy, this is this is needed. And we did not have the resources like back then. I was trying to advocate, yeah, this is good, but like nobody believed me.
Yeah.
It was like, no, like this isn't I was like literally
one tiny person looking up at a giant army.
Yeah, and now it's like a lot more accepted, and it's also leading the way, unfortunately, for other people who are going through, similar tragedy or the loss of a child, or even like illness, to be able to, give them agency and empowerment to do what they want to do, to memorialize and know that, because people always are looking, okay, what's normal? Like,
exactly.
Don't look what's normal. Look what is right for you and make that normal in your life. But it still
what
gave,
are you
like,
feeling
legitimacy.
calling to do?
Right. But this gave legitimacy.
Yeah, it did.
To the way we memorialized her. And I'm so grateful for, I feel like God really sent me a huge smack in the face, but also a lot of balm and, things to make it a little more survivable.
Yeah.
And those are the people that he sent in my life and in this journey.
That's amazing. I will link the book for anyone who's interested in purchasing it, or anyone who thinks they could benefit.
Okay.
It's really a beautiful read and a beautiful book. And then this is a perfect segue into my final question, which I plan on asking every guest this season. In the face of our current climate, this current world that we live in, a uncertain world that we live in, what are some practices that you do that help you feel grounded, that help you feel safe, that help you come back to self? What do you do when you're feeling uncertain and you're feeling like the world might open up underneath you?
I think I make sure that my home is grounding, is set in a way that's grounding for me, and that's work that I've done in the past few years, really focusing on that.
Okay.
And you've been a great inspiration.
Thank you.
Find, like, making it, like, no matter how the outside world is, home is a place I like to be in. My garden in the summer, and my living space, and making it a place where I can host and bring people in that feels like connecting and safe. And I'm glad that, like, my shlichus, like, allows me and enables me to do a lot of it, which I love. And also a lot of time in nature.
Yeah.
As much as I can. Movement, travel, every opportunity that I have to travel, I grab it. And sometimes it's, like, literally impossible with my schedule, but, like, I compensate with another one, like, as soon as I can.
Yeah. So you have to make sure to travel.
Yeah, travel grounds me. It grounds me. I have the home that is really the most grounding, but the breathing, like, there's so much beauty in the world. Like, I mean, I can't focus on, all the world's problems. If I have agency and I can, change certain things which bother me, great. I think that also being an activist in every like, that also can become,
of course,
like, debilitating.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can't take it on.
Can't fight every battle.
Yeah, you can. You have, like, limited bandwidth, and really be in touch, like, with, like, I have to be in touch with myself, really feel my plate, to massages.
Yeah.
Like, do the things that like, spend time with friends, even if it means, like, driving an hour and a half, like, to see a friend, or meet up, and spend time with my kids, see my parents, the family. Like, those are
the things we know to be true.
Yeah, that's to be true, to be safe, to be grounded, and focus on putting work in my relationships.
Yeah.
They need to be healthy, and I think overall, like, it's that creates a well-being. A good space brightens, beautiful space brightens the mind, expands horizons, and a proper self of self. Because when we feel grounded, we present the best versions of ourselves.
Yeah.
And we want to give that to society, as a mother, as a friend, as a community leader.
I love that, Perla. Thank you so much for doing this today. I can't tell you how much I admire the work that you're doing. Just not even, I mean, the PhD is so impressive, but even outside of that, and just the work you're doing in the world, just the path that you're forging for giving space for other people to be able to learn and grow from some of the things you've been through, and just everything. I'm so inspired by you. I'm so honored that you came on the show today, and I don't know. I love you. I'm so glad. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It feels like such a gift to be with you. Thank you, April.